Hello everyone, and welcome all of you to the episode number 3 of our fortnightly series that we have started, and that is the project discussion series. So, today we are bringing you the episode number 3. So, it will be a fortnightly event, as you all know. So, that means every month we will have two such episodes. So, thank you for taking out time on a Friday evening and joining us for this series. So, as all of you know, it is an online platform to discuss projects, ideas, and your problems. So, today also we will be discussing some problems that are faced by structural engineers, and we will be trying to solve them. We will be taking up a project and we will be having an open discussion about that, and then we will be meeting a young structural engineer and learning from his experiences. So that is how the episode will be uh, planned this evening. So let us start then, and we will start with our uh, first segment, and that is, you know are the problems that are commonly faced by the structural engineers and their solutions. So I hope before we move ahead, my voice is properly audible and you can listen to me clearly. Right. So then let us see this time what is the problem that we are going to take. Last episode, if you remember, we had taken up two problems. So the first problem was related to the uh, structural steel design parameters in StatPro. That was the first problem that we had taken last week. And then we also discussed about the peer labels and their assignments. So those were two issues that we had discussed last week. So this week we are going to take another problem. The idea for this actually came up uh, when we were discussing last episode, and that's how we thought that let us take this this problem, and that is how to understand a geotechnical report and what should be included in a geotechnical report and how a good geotechnical report looks like. So those are some of the issues that as a structural engineer we quite often face problems, and therefore we thought that this episode we will take this up. So if I before moving ahead, what do you think are the problems that as structural engineers we are unable to understand in a geotechnical report? If anyone would like to comment. Some of the problems that as structural engineers we are unable to understand when we look at the geotechnical report. What does our audience think about it? If anyone wants to comment. So it's quite often that we get geotechnical report. Sometimes we do not get geotechnical reports for our project, but when we do get them, we really don't know what to see, what to look in those reports, and what are the key aspects that should be included in a report. So those issues many times we face difficulty with. So let us see. Uh, First of all, what are the objective of a geotechnical report? Let us first see that, and then we will see how a good report should look like. Okay. So, what should a report contain? What are the objectives of preparing a geotechnical report? So, geotechnical report should help the engineer or should help the client in site selection, isn't it? So, when you are going to do a project, it is very important that you conduct some geotechnical testings, and with the help of those testings, you get to decide the site if that is the option. See, in most of the projects the site may be already fixed, so you have to live with what you have got. So many times you don't have the option of site selection as such, but if you do have the option of site selection, let us say there are 3 4 sites and you have to pick one, Then you can carry out the geotechnical testing, and then accordingly decide which is a better looking, which is a better site. So that can be one of the objectives, important objectives of a geotechnical report. Geotechnical report, of course, will help you in understanding the mechanical properties like bearing capacities, mechanical properties like C, phi, uh, SPT values, shear parameters. I already told you shear parameters C, phi. So these properties, for finding out these properties, technical geotechnical report is required. So that is an important objective of carrying out a geotechnical testing. Then chemical properties. Which type of chemical properties are we looking at? So chemical properties like presence of sulfates, chlorides, etc. So sometimes those properties are also quite important. So suppose your soil is aggressive in nature and it has high sulfates or chloride content, then it may be required to uh, know their uh, you could say know their amounts in your soil, and for that a geotech report should be carried out or a geotechnical investigation is required. The next very important objective of doing a geotechnical investigation is to understand the presence of groundwater. Extremely important. I have personally seen many projects having trouble or running problems when because the groundwater was not adequately tested and it was not properly tested. So presence of groundwater is very very important, and a good geotechnical report will always try to find out the presence of groundwater, its level, and the chemical properties of your soil water. The next important objective of report can be slope stability. So suppose you are going to have some excavations, or suppose you want to create some embankments, then understanding the slope stability is also very important. The next important objective of your report can be to to understand whether your soil can be used as a backfill or not. So many times it is important that whether or not the excavated soil can be used as a backfill. So expansive soils like black cotton soil or soils which are having very high chemical content, they may not be good backfill materials. So your geotech report should clearly tell you this thing, whether or not your soil can be used as a backfill or you need to replace with some other soil for backfilling. The next is shoring design. So shoring design means for deep excavations. If you happen to visit any big metropolitan city, you will often see very deep excavations for multi-storied structures, and there they usually do the shoring design also. So they may design a sheet piling system, or they may design some alternative systems. So that design also may have to be included in your geotech report. So these are the broad objectives uh, of why you need to actually carry out a geotechnical investigation. How do we do it? We all know some of the things we will do on field. So those are called as field testing, and some of the things we will do in the lab. So we will collect some undisturbed samples, and the undisturbed samples are taken to lab for testing. And on field, we can carry out the SPT, standard penetration test, or you can carry out the plate load test, or you can carry out some specific gravity testing, etc., etc. Mostly those would be on the disturbed samples. So in these two ways, we carry out the geotechnical testings. How a good report should look like? Very important. What should it contain? So actually, I have taken some screenshots from a report which was submitted to us by one of our clients for one of an actual project. So we have removed the client details, and I will just tell you what are the sections, important sections of a geotechnical report, and how a good report should look like. So, first of all, very important is the project description. So, whenever you want to carry out any testing or whenever you want to prepare a report, it is very important that the project should be known to your geotechnical agency, because as per the project, as per what you are going to construct, they decide what type of testings are required. They will decide what strata, till what strata the investigation needs to be carried out, and uh, a few other decisions that they have to take. So it's very important that the agency, the testing agency, should know that what the project is going to be. So here you can see that the project information is given. Then the purpose, what you exactly want to do in your testing, that should be known. So if you can see over here, the purpose is given, what the report wants to accomplish. So they have said that they will be drilling 4 boreholes. They have given you the depth of the strata also. They will be testing the soil and water samples, and they will be, in the C part they have written that they will be carrying out tests on field and in the lab. So these are the this is the purpose of your study. Again, very important, the purpose should be known, and the strata till which the investigation will be carried out should also be known. For example, here they are investigating till 15.45 meters of depth. So why they have chosen this depth? Because it depends on the project type. So here we had a project which was very large in nature. It was a 32-meter dia silo, and it was going to hold around 12,500 tons of uh, wheat. So therefore, they have decided, and they are going till 15 meters of depth below your NGL. So the strata, till what strata the testing will be carried out, it depends on the nature of project. Suppose you are doing a small residential project, you may not do the testing till 15 meters of depth. So it depends on the nature of your project. So purpose is very important. Locations where you are going to take samples from. So locations of boreholes are very important. So in this case, they have taken 4 boreholes. Of course, they will give you the coordinates, and they will give you the borehole depths. So I have deliberately, we have removed the coordinates from here. So a good report should also give you the location of boreholes. It should give you some information about the geology. So what geological formations you will get on site, and other details about the geological features is important. So you will see a section should always be there about the regional geology of your site. Then it should give you this site stratification. So it should give you what are the stratas, what are the underlying stratas in your site. So in this case, let's say for 4 to 4.5 meters of depth, there is some clayey silt, after which you get a sandy silt layer, and I think that is going up till 15 meters of depth. So you have a clayey silt strata, and underlying that you have a sandy silty strata. So that is the type of strata that you are getting. Okay, so this site stratification is quite important, and it should be included in your report. Then the groundwater location, very important. So here they are saying that they encountered groundwater. In this, there is one very important data that should be understood in this entire paragraph. What is one very important information that you should understand? Yes, tell me if you read it. There is one very important information that should be very critical information. So in this case, they have encountered groundwater, and they have encountered it at a certain depth. So the critical information that is very important in this case, as Mega is saying, is the season, is the month in which this exploration was carried out. Okay, extremely important. Why it is important? Because as you know that the groundwater table will fluctuate as per the seasonal variation. Okay, so if you do the testing in, let's say, pre-monsoon, you are doing the testing in the summer months of let us say March, April, May, your groundwater table uh, will give you some different results. If you are doing it in the monsoon months or just after the monsoon, your results may vary. And let's say if you are doing in the winters, again your results will vary. So you may draw incorrect conclusions if you are testing the groundwater in, let's say, summer months. So if you are testing in summer months, the groundwater table is anyway very low. So you may draw incorrect conclusions. So the season and the month in which the testing has been carried out is extremely critical. So here they have correctly written that this testing was carried out in the month of November. So it has been, let's say, 3 months post monsoon. So in the months of monsoon, you may expect the water table to further rise up, maybe. Okay. So the groundwater, very important to understand that the corresponding season should be mentioned. Then after carrying out the testing, the geotechnical agency will give you some recommendations for the bearing capacity or the allowable bearing pressure. So this allowable bearing pressure is always calculated as per two criteria. So one is the settlement criteria and one is the shear criteria. And the lower of the two is given as the recommended bearing pressure value. Generally, the settlement criteria is the lower of the two, so it is the value that is usually given to you. Again, very important that only a value of bearing pressure makes no sense. Okay, so a value of bearing pressure should always be associated with some settlement. Very important point. So, for example, here you can see that they have given some recommendations for the allowable bearing pressure. And let us say for RCC strip footing, I'm reading the first row at a depth of 2 meters. For 40 settlement, they have given you one value, 14.4 tons per square meter. And for 50 settlement, they have given you a different value. So bearing pressure always has to be understood with respect to a corresponding settlement. If your report only gives you bearing pressure without giving you any settlement value, it is meaningless. Okay, it carries no meaning actually. So very important point. So how to identify whether your report is a good report? So you look at the bearing pressure value and look if it has been given with an associated settlement or not. And then it has given you a K value also, modulus of subgrade reaction. So these days, if you use safe software or if you are using Stat Foundation, you know that we need the K values for analyzing the footing substructures. Okay, so they have given you the K value as well. So this recommendation is important. Then another recommendation that they have given is the chemical testing of soil water. Now, why this may be required? So, as I told you, your soil water may contain chlorides, sulfates, and uh, those may be aggressive, and those may create problems for your foundation or substructure. So, it is very important that you do the testing for your chlorides and sulfates. Those are the two aggressive substances that we may have in soil. So here they have done the testing for chemical. Sorry, here they have done the testing for soil water also. So again, a good report should contain this. Then they have given an additional section. So they have given you the liquefaction assessment. When do we have the problem of liquefaction? So as many of you know that in case of earthquake, we may have to check whether or not your soil has a tendency to liquefy. So if your soil liquefies, what will happen? That uh, it will lose its shear carrying capacity. and your structures might fail. So liquefaction only happens under the effect of lateral or seismic shaking. So here they have assessed the liquefaction susceptibility. In the current IS 1893 2016 Part 1, they have added an annexure for working out the liquefaction susceptibility of soil. So here they have done, and then in the last but one paragraph, they are writing that on review of all the soil parameters and groundwater condition, the report is of the opinion that the soil at site is not likely to liquefy in an event of earthquake. So here they have done some liquefaction assessment also. So this section you may not get in all the geotech reports, but this report was good in that sense that it gave you this section also. And then the use of excavated soil, as I was telling you, whether or not your soil can be used as a backfill. So in this case, I'll read the first line. These soils are suitable for reuse in the backfills. So they have done the investigation, and here they are telling us that these soils can be used as backfill also. I told you that this is one of the objectives of the report. So in this way, your geotechnical report should be presented. So that is what I wanted to tell you. And now you understand that how a good report should look like. Okay. Once again, if I tell you the objectives, so any report that you come across, uh, it should fulfill these objectives. So this is what I wanted to highlight for this section. So today we have taken only one problem because we are going to discuss one project very quickly now. If you have any questions, you may ask. So Rahul is asking how to correlate the SPT values with bearing capacity and how to decide soft, hard, and medium soil as per Sbcn value. So the answer to second part, how to decide soft, hard, and medium soil, if you are asking in relation to IS 1893 Part 1, they have given you very clear cut value ranges for finding out whether your soil is soft, hard, or medium on the basis of SPT values. And the answer to the first part, how to correlate SPT values with bearing capacity. So direct correlation is difficult to have, but there are a lot of research work and lot of MTech thesis, lot of PhD thesis that people do on finding out some uh, empirical relationships. So there is a lot of uh, information that you will get if you search on the internet about the empirical correlation between the SPT values and the bearing capacity. But to get a direct formula based uh, correlation is difficult because your bearing capacity depends on some other factors also. So direct correlation is difficult, but still you do get some empirical relationships, and it is a topic of that many MTech people, I mean many people who do MTech and PhDs in geotechnical pursue. Good. So this was our first segment that was about the problems. Now in this episode, we have also taken one more short segment, and that is related to a project discussion. So we had asked, we if you remember, we have circulated, or we always circulate some questionnaire where we ask to narrate any problems that you are facing in your project. And some of you had given your, just give me a minute. So some of you had given your problems, and in this episode we are going to feature one of your problems that you had faced during one of your projects. So I will read the problem statement, and then we can have a open discussion that if you were a structural engineer who was faced with such a problem, what would you do? So this was submitted by engineer Hussein Matkawala. He's from Indore, and so you can just read out the problem statement. So he was designing a residential G+3 commercial building, and actually, initially some other engineer was involved in the project, but later on there was some issues the client had with the earlier engineer. So then Mr. Hussain was appointed by the client, but when Mr. Hussain took up this project, the work till the plinth level was already completed. Okay, so the construction work till the plinth had already happened. Footings were also cast, of course. So footings were already cast, and the plinth, till the plinth, everything was done. And then Mr. Hussain was given the project. Now the main challenge was that the client told them that they now wanted an extra story. Okay, this is quite often this happens in uh, our cities, that initially client had some other ideas, and then suddenly the client changes his or her mind, and now they want an extra story. So the challenge is that the footings have already been cast for one less story, because earlier that was the planning, and the construction till plinth has already happened. So now Mr. Hussain joined this project at this stage. So this is the problem statement that he had given. Of course, he had given the solution also, and he had written in his mail that how he overcome this challenge. But before we could go to the solution, I would just like to invite all of you for an open discussion, that if you were a structural engineer and if this type of problem came to you, or if this type of project came to you, how would you proceed? Yes, anyone, if they would like to quickly comment. I hope you got it, what is happening. So let us say, you when you got this project from the client, the construction work till the plinth has already been done, and now the client wants to add one more story. Okay, so the footings have been cast, the plinth level beams have been cast, the columns have been cast till the plinth level, and now you are asked to add one more story and do the rest of the design. So as a design engineer, how will you proceed? Yes. So Mr. Weber says check the capacity of footings, but that will come later. First, initially you will have to prepare, let us say, some model, and then, so how you can start? Of course, you can start by preparing some analysis, computer analysis model, and then in the analysis model you can add that extra story. You can then apply all the possible loadings, isn't it? You can apply all the possible loadings, do the analysis, and then uh, check the main things to be checked, that you need to check, of course, would be the foundations, because the footings have already been cast. So the footings need to be properly checked. Mr. Rahul is saying that first check the size of footings, as it is safe for that one extra story or not. Yeah, so footing checking will come later. First, you need the loads from the superstructure. So for to get the loads from superstructure, you need to have some calculations behind it, isn't it? You need some background calculations. So those you can do either by preparing some computer model, let's say. So you prepare some analysis model, and then you apply the loads, run the analysis, and check the capacity of uh, footings. First of all, if your footings are not safe, what are your options? Yes, tell me. If your footings are not safe, let us say if the footing is unable to take that additional one story load, you see that the bearing pressure is uh, being exceeded, then what do you do? So Rishali is saying first step is loading, analysis, check column capacity, then foundation. Very good. So she has written in a proper step by step order. So my question is that if your footing is not safe, by not safe I mean that your footing bearing pressure exceeds the bearing capacity because of that extra story. What do you do? So Mr. Amshuman is saying that we may provide additional columns to provide an alternate load path. Additional columns will be a problem because then you will have to compromise with the planning. So that might not always be agreeable to the client to add one more to add more columns. So in case the bearing pressure of footing exceeds, then you don't have any other choice but to excavate. Okay. The only thing that you can do, the only thing that you can do in case the bearing pressure below your footings increase or it goes beyond the bearing capacity is to excavate the footing and increase its plan area. That is the only option you have. There is no other possible solution for it. Okay. So you will have to excavate, you will have to reach to the footing level, you will have to increase the plan area of your footing. So to increase the plan area of your footing, how you can do it? So you can do it by, uh, as Mr. Rahul is saying, you can do some rebarring and then you can increase the plan area. In footings, there are always two components. One is the plan area of your footing and the other is thickness. Okay. First, you need to satisfy the bearing pressure. It should be below your bearing capacity of the soil. So for that, uh, plan area is the only solution. Once you satisfy your plan area, once the bearing pressure is below your bearing capacity, then you can think of how to increase the thickness if required. So those thickness of footing, it is easy to increase, but if you want to increase the plan area, it becomes quite challenging. And then for the columns that have been cast till the plinth level, if it requires strengthening, what are your options? So your only options for column strengthening will be to do some jacketing. That is the easy and the cost effective solution. So you can do some column jacketing, increase the column cross section, increase the reinforcement. So in this case also, yeah, most of you have given a correct, I would say, correct approach to this problem statement. So in this case also, what Mr. Hussein did, because he had written us about the solution that he had adopted, so they did the analysis first. After doing the analysis, then they figured out that yes, the footings were insufficient in size in the plan area. So they had to excavate till the footing level. They had to go for an increase in the plan area by rebarring, and then they had to do some column strengthening also till the plinth level, and then they could proceed. So all those things they had to do in their case also. So most of you gave us a correct uh, approach for this project. So in the next episodes also, you can submit some of your projects that you did, that you found challenging, and we can discuss those in this forum. So we just thought that it was an interesting case, because this type of situation you will quite often face, that the client will come to you, let us say at the plinth level, isn't it? So that is quite often the case that you find yourselves in. Therefore, I thought let us take up this issue. Mr. Weber is saying better to create better bond between materials, they will use shear connectors. Mega had also a similar thing to say. Will it be monolithic? Chemical used? Question mark. No, if you do rebarring, see, if you when you do rebarring and if you increase the plan area, the shear forces are not that much of a problem, isn't it? Shear is critical near the column face. If you are increasing the plan area, and in the outer extremities anyway, shear is not a very big problem. So it's okay even if you do not have shear connectors, etc., etc. It's quite okay. And of course, then you can provide some rings. So in the footing also, if you want to increase the plan area, And if you want to make that monolithic, or if you want to make that behavior good in shear, you can always introduce some rings in the footing. So that is another option that you have. Good. So this was just one of the projects that engineer Hussein had submitted, and I thought it was a good thing to discuss. So if you also have any projects that you do, uh, or that you find challenging and you want to discuss it on this forum, you are welcome to submit them and we will take it up for discussion. Mega is asking, plan area is to be increased on one side. Preferably, no. Plan area should be increased uniformly all around. Okay. So it is preferable to increase the plan area uniformly all around. So that was our segment related to the project discussion. And now we move to our next segment, and that is a segment where we invite structural engineers and we learn from their experiences. So it's always very important to learn from each other's experiences, and therefore we always try to invite some structural engineer on this forum and understand from their journey. So in this episode also we have amongst us a very young and dynamic structural engineer, engineer Amshuman Adhikari. So he has done his BE from NIT Silchar and MTech from IIEST Shivpur. Then he did some work in the Guwahati Development Authority, if I can spell it out correctly. And then, as of now, he is involved as a design engineer in Cadmetric Consulting. It's a very big, renowned, multidisciplinary firm of Guwahati. So he is working there right now as a design engineer. So we welcome him on today's episode. Hello, Mr. Anshuman.
Hello, sir.
Yes, if you could speak a little bit loudly.
Hello, sir. Am I audible now?
Yeah, but your voice, I think, is just try to speak a little louder.
Yes, sir.
Yes, so hello and welcome, and thank you for patiently waiting.
Thank you, sir.
So, if you could tell us a few things about your journey so far, let's say since you did your graduation.
Sir, after my bachelor's, I dropped 1 year for GATE preparation, where I went to ACE Academy, Hyderabad, to prepare to get the coaching. After that, sir, I appeared for GATE, and I had a rank of 2765 around.
Okay,
And after that, I got selected into IIST Shipur. So
okay,
during the preparation itself, while I got to know about the course curriculum, I thought that there was some kind of a gap because what they were doing, like every professor can take up consultancies also. So we used to see work happening in the department, and like so what I studied by myself and got to know that there was a gap between it. So thereafter, after I passed masters, I was waiting desperately to work in a structural design firm to get a better idea of whatever I learned. But here in Guwahati, there are not many very proficient firms here and well-known firms. So one of them was there, but they have a very they skim through a lot of people to select. So that's why I
right,
submitted my CV and started working in an architectural firm.
okay,
From then on, I got into the GMDA, Guwahati Metropolitan Development Authority project, where they were
yeah,
developing a botanical garden. In a previous,
okay,
there was a jail there before. So the jail shifted, so that area is used as a central park kind of thing. So I was working there for around 4 to 5 months. Post that, I got a response from the firm Cadmetric, where I submitted my CV, and from
okay,
April onwards, I'm working there.
okay, good. That is good. So, what type of projects you are involved in right now at Cadmetric Consulting?
So when I first joined Cadmetric in April, there was one project which came up, which was a hospital building. The building was already constructed, but that was kind of a commercial block. But for a hospital, it was not a very the building was subpar because hospitals have an importance factor of 1.5, so we design it for much higher forces.
Correct.
So we got the initial building plans and everything, and we did the model. But while we applied the earthquake load, it was all the columns were near about failing. So
Okay.
we thought of taking some shear walls and means aligning the shear wall accordingly, as the new plan suggested, the new hospital planning, whatever the architects gave. So we were adding shear walls, and right now, 2 3 columns will be jacketed, and rest the shear walls will take care of. So work is
So,
going to start soon. Then. Yes, sir.
as I understand correctly, it was supposed to be a commercial building initially, and then you had
Yes, sir.
to convert it into a hospital building.
Yes, sir.
So it was an existing structure.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So existing commercial structure, you had to convert it into a hospital building and then check and make it stable enough.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So how did you model the existing structure? Which software did you use and how did you go ahead with it?
So ETABS itself, first
Okay.
initially we took a site visit to see
Okay.
whatever if there were cracks in anything on the existing structure, since it was already there for quite a long period of time. And after
Okay.
that we modeled it in ETABS.
Okay.
So after modeling it, we saw that it was failing with the new load that we were applying. So after that, each of the columns were modified, and using section designer, we started jacketing them and
Okay.
applying shear walls. Yes.
So how, if you could quickly tell our audience that what scheme are you adopting for jacketing? How are you doing it?
So right now, whatever foundation is already there, so we have to make sure that we have to, even if we are jacketing, the extra number of rods that will be assigning, that we have to embed in the foundation itself. So the
Yes.
foundation analysis part of it is little bit left because newer number of shear walls have also come. And for that, since the soil is a little bit weaker, we do have to bring in piling equipment. And so
Right.
the clearance aspect of it also needs to be seen. Since
Correct.
we might, for applying a proper pile, we might have to break a few slabs also for getting the piling equipment to drive there.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Mega is asking what is the height of your building that you're talking about?
So it's 7 story. Each of the stories are of around 3.3 meters of height.
Okay, it's quite tall.
Yes,
Big
sir.
building, that is.
Yes, sir.
So for jacketing, did you look into the option of carbon wrapping or you are going with the normal jacketing technique of increasing the cross-sectional area?
So right now we are trying the increase in cross-sectional area itself. So it is still in
Okay.
the planning phase, and further discussions are awaited. So
Okay.
from April onwards, it is I'm quite new to that, so it has not
Yeah.
progressed that far. But
Okay.
right now we are seeing the traditional method.
But very interesting. Any other challenging project you would like to talk us about?
So most of the videos that I see of yours, so I'm getting to implement them in another of the projects that is an SDO office here.
Okay.
So in that also, the importance factor is 1.5, but the only difference than the hospital is that we are getting to decide where to put the shear walls because that is a new building. So
Correct.
that is kind of a little bit relaxed. So
Okay.
since both the projects are going hand in hand, so I'm learning a little bit.
Very
Like,
interesting.
so
Yes. And anything, what are your plans? How do you look at this profession of structural engineering and what are your plans for the future?
Sir, it is very dynamic, definitely. When I go to office every day, something or the other of a very different kind has always turned up. Like they were developing oil container tanks for Indian oil, and projects like that also come up.
Okay.
So my idea is that I'll just learn RCC and steel, preferably till next June. Then post that, I will start my own construction firm.
Okay.
Which
Interesting.
encompasses all. Yes, sir.
So I always find the entire Northeast to be very challenging for civil engineers because it is in a
Yes,
very high seismic zone,
yes,
it
sir.
is in a very high wind zone, and you often
Yes,
get very poor soil conditions. So
yes,
as a civil engineer, it's extremely challenging to practice in the Northeast.
yes, sir.
Yeah,
So
interesting.
like in last year around April 8th, I suppose there were many seismic activities taking place on the same day itself.
Okay.
So like
Yeah.
uh, the seismic waves are coming, so everybody got a little bit paranoid
Yeah.
regarding that. So post post that, a lot of retrofitting activities have come up. Since
Okay.
the existing buildings, many of them have developed cracks and things because
Correct.
they were constructed by old builders, and
Yeah.
since the seismic activity, none of it of a very high intensity has hit in the recent times, so they were kind of a bit relaxed in implementing the projects.
Yeah.
So
So
so that
in a way, it
that op-
worked out well. Yeah.
so that opens up a domain for retrofitting engineers also who know it.
Correct.
Yes.
So anything you would like to tell us, tell our audience, because all of them are young structural engineers. Most of them do practice, but some of them
Yes.
are going to start practicing or start their professional careers. So
Yes, sir.
if you could uh, give some message to them.
So right now, what I learned recently is that the post-processing results. So like I have commented in the Google form also of this session. So the post-processing results, whenever we can automate it mostly, so that becomes much better because then errors get reduced and also repetitive work we do not have to keep on doing it again. So that is the recent thing I'm working right now to put all the post-processing in macros of Excel.
Okay. So you're preparing macros on your own?
Yes, sir. Like for columns, recently I developed this thing by using conditional formatting. I
Okay.
I applied that to see how to reduce the reinforcement in a
Right.
story-wise format. Yes, sir.
Yes. Good. Interesting. Thank you. So if our audience has any questions for Engineer Anshuman, they can ask. So I suppose Rushali is asking about the photos. I think she is referring to the project that you were talking about.
Okay,
Any
sir.
other
Right now I
question?
don't have it. I'll send it definitely.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yes.
Uh, Ghanim Khan is asking, please discuss something about retrofitting due to seismic activities. So is I think this is what he is doing because his importance factor has increased to 1.5. So I think the retrofitting activity that they will carry out uh, will be for the enhanced seismic forces, if I understand your question correctly.
Yes.
Yes,
So
anything
one
you
thing
would
I
like?
had like, yes, sir. So can I add something?
Yeah, please, 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 please go
Yes,
ahead.
sir. Sir, at first I had this doubt when the buildings and the columns in the buildings were failing, as to how many shear walls are enough. Like we
Yeah,
keep on adding them, and that adds up to the cost. So there is a thing about adding further and optimizing it also.
correct,
So by checking dynamics, I saw that there is a certain kind of balance that I observed in both of the projects. That
correct.
after keeping on increasing one after the other, at one certain point of time, loads will be shared. Means shear walls will start acting in a more intensive manner, and loads in the
Yeah,
columns would reduce. So
correct.
the entire jacketing thing can be checked also by adding
Yeah,
more shear walls. So that is one thing I observed.
good, good. Very interesting. So if our audience wants to ask anything to our speaker, they may ask. Sandeep is asking if it may be possible to increase the depth of footing. I think this is not in relation to what you just said.
Yes.
I think it was for some other point. Yes, Ganeem is asking, I think this is for you, how to add jacketing in your analysis model.
So first of all, we already had the columns that were existing. the existing column schedule we had. So based on that, we started on the columns that were failing after we added the shear wall. So in those columns specifically, we started developing section designer sections,
Okay.
sections which were assigned or defined in section designer, where we
Right.
started off with lower reinforcement, like around 16 bars, 10 numbers, or even lesser, and then started running the programs again.
Right. That's how you did. Very interesting. Good. Any parting words you would like to give us?
So no, I just want to thank you, sir, for whatever help. Your videos have always acted as like a guidance,
Yeah.
even though I do not talk to you on a regular basis. I do
Yes.
see and get all my answers to them. So
Thank
thank you
you.
so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. So thank you so much, Anshuman, for taking out time on a weekend and joining our episode. So you continue to be in the stream. If the audience have any question, we will add you back on the stream.
Okay, sir. Sure.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for joining.
Yes.
So that was in Indian Anshuman. He was joining us live from Guwahati, and he shared his experience regarding the projects that they are doing. And it was quite an interesting discussion where he told us about the retrofitting that he is carrying out for the structure. Good. So now we move to our last segment, and we will have a quick open discussion. So if you have any questions, queries related to what we discussed, or if you have any other points you would like to add, you are now welcome to do so. So before that, I would just add two more points that we had received in our Google form. So engineer Sharath, he he comments that apart from detailing and collaboration, what are the other benefits of BIM for structural engineer? So building information modeling. What are the benefits of for what are the benefits of BIM for structural engineers? So I may not be the good person, appropriate person to answer this question because my knowledge in the field of BIM is quite limited. So if the audience wants to take this up, because I have no practical working experience in the field of building information modeling, so I may not be the correct person to take this up. But if anyone in the audience wants to chip in, they are quite welcome to do so. The next point was raised by engineer Hussein Matkawala. So he is the same person who had shared us his project that we discussed. So he has a good point that he is making, that structural engineers need to be attached to various associations, professional bodies and associations, to get updated, to remain updated, and to know about the new trends. Yeah, this is an important point actually. So as structural engineers, we have to meet, I would say, like-minded individuals and like-minded people, people who are from our same profession. So it is always helpful to get in touch and remain in touch. So a good way to do that is to get membership of some engineering bodies. So there are a lot of engineering bodies, like Institution of Engineers is a one umbrella organization for structural engineers. That is an India wide organization, but that is for all engineers of all disciplines. So you may look for some associations which are specific for structural engineers. It's always quite helpful. In addition to that, one more thing I would say is to take membership of some journals. So research journals, ICJ, Indian Concrete Journal, is one of the oldest journal that you have, but there are some good journals also other than ICJ. So when you have subscription of these journals, there are quite a lot of happenings, new things that they have in every edition. So it's a good platform to learn and to understand what is happening. They are mostly research based journals, so mostly there would be some papers, publications, but many of those papers are by practicing engineers also. So many of the times, uh, you might get solutions to some practical working problems. So this is a good point that engineer Hussein has made. Yes, I struck T, as Rahul is saying, it is a uh, it is again a national body for structural engineers. It is a good and a very wide organization, I struck T, and they are doing a lot of activities for practicing structural engineers. So yes, that is another good association that you can become a part of. Weber is answering to the applications of BIM. So he's saying using BIM, you can also have the quantity of materials calculated. You can work out the rebar schedules, and you can even work out the bar bending schedules. Yeah. So as I said, my knowledge related to BIM is quite limited. So thanks to Weber for pointing this out. Then Rahul is saying, I think this is in continuation to what Engineer Amshuman said. So Engineer Rahul is saying that he is also doing the same with Excel macro and OpenStat. Please share your contact details so I can get some ideas. Yes, I will. I will share Mr. Anshuman's contact details. Yes, that will be done. Or in fact, Anshuman can also type his mobile number in the comment, and I'll just display that comment over here. Correct. So you may collaborate and you may work out some better ideas. Any other point that anyone wants to make? So this is the time for our open discussion. Today was the third episode. Next month, September first week, we will be back with the fourth episode. So uh, you can tell us what you want to be included in our episodes, isn't it? So I think if there are no more comments, that's all we have for this episode. Thank you so much, and thank you for taking out time on a Friday evening and joining us late in the night. So I hope today's episode was good, and we had a good and meaningful discussion with all of you. So that's all we have. Thank you, and thank you once again to Anshuman for joining. So we will be back next episode in the first week of September. Till then, have a good time, stay healthy, and stay fit. We'll see you next time. Bye bye. And thanks once again for joining us today.